The Runaway Wife. It is a tragic tale about the life of a fallen Muslim girl. This is also a love story of an Egyptian prostitute who fell in love with one of her clients, who changed her life for the better. It was written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyright. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the author's prior written permission except by the reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs from the review for printing in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this book are fictitious, and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is purely coincidental. Chapter 21. Hafez left the hotel early the next morning and headed towards the police headquarters. He left before his girlfriend, Ikram, woke up. He did not tell her his plan. He decided to go to the police and talk to them about Ikram's 2 sons. It took him 20 minutes to walk from the hotel to the police headquarters. When he got there, he was asked to wait until the guards got permission to see their boss, the police commissioner in the city where his beloved Ikram was born. He was anxious and seemed very nervous. He did not wait long before he was asked to enter. The police commissioner was in a good mood that day. He offered Hafez a seat and asked him to sit. "What is your complaint?" the police commissioner asked, smiling. "I have no complaints, sir. I have come to inquire about my cousin's 2 sons. They were placed under government care a few years ago." "You mean they're in a correctional facility for young offenders? In that case, you should travel to the capital city. We only have one correctional center in the country, which is in Cairo." "No, sir. They're being held in the city in an orphanage. They were 1 and 2 years old when they were taken away." "First of all, I have never heard of an orphanage in the city. Secondly, there is no police authority in the entire country that allows police officers to arrest children as young as 1 and 2 years old." "They have not been arrested, sir. My cousin was accused of having a secret love affair with another man. For this reason, her husband killed the man with whom she was accused of adultery, but she managed to escape. We do not know where she went after she fled honor killing at the hands of her angry husband, who slaughtered the blackmailer who caught her with him in an illegal seclusion inside his room in his house." "But you have not yet explained to me why the government should take her 2 children from their father?" "Because her husband denied that her 2 sons were his own. He said that they were illegitimate children. The Sharia court also considered them to be illegitimate sons. My cousin's parents also disowned the 2 children. The imam of the mosque told them to disavow them because they were born from adultery. Therefore, there was no one to take care of them except the police." "Where are they now?" "That's what I want to know, sir. My cousin's mother told me that the government kept them in an orphanage near the main prison in this town." "Where's that orphanage?" "I don't know where the orphanage is, sir." "Not even me. Where are the children then?" "I don't know where they are now and who took them from their relatives. I have never heard of 2 children being placed under police care." "Sir, perhaps if you looked into the merits of the case, you might know where the 2 children were sent." "What is the name of your cousin who ran away from her husband?" "Ikram Silla." "What is her husband's name?" "His name is Al-Taib Salih. I was working abroad when she married him." "Do you know the name of the man her husband killed?" "His name is Faki Mahmoud. He was a quack witch doctor who claimed that he could cure a barren wife." The police commissioner was astonished when he heard the name of the man who had been killed in an honor killing. He shook his head in great astonishment, then looked at Hafez and said, "I know the circumstances of this crime and the people involved in it. But the hoax witch doctor Faki Mahmoud is not dead yet. He is still alive. He is now serving a long sentence for his secret love affair with a married woman. It is true that the woman's husband stabbed him in the back several times with his knife, but he did not kill him. He confessed to the police about his illicit relationship with the runaway wife. He also admitted that the 2 sons were his children. The criminal court confirmed his confession through DNA parental testing. The 2 illegitimate sons were placed in government care until their father completed his sentence or their runaway mother returned and claimed them." The police commissioner stopped and looked at Hafez's face. He saw his face show great astonishment. "I myself attended the trial. The witch doctor Faki Mahmoud also admitted that he deceived and blackmailed the runaway wife." Hafez shouted, This means that the court declared my cousin Ikram innocent. Yes, but she is not innocent before her Muslim husband and Egyptian society. How could she go to the imposter witch doctor to solve her infertility? Was she expecting him to create a child for her? Is he God the creator of humans? When he impregnated her the first time, why did she go to him again? She should have at least reported his charlatan acts and blackmailing to her Muslim husband or the police authority. For this reason, all Muslims in the city consider her an unfaithful and adulterous wife. Her escape from her husband and her city confirmed her betrayal and adultery. But the law, sir, declared her innocent. Yes, legally she is not guilty of any crime, but she is still morally guilty. Hafez wanted to run to his friend Ikram and tell her the good news. He ignored the issue of morality and the opinion of the Islamic community regarding his lover's escape from her husband and her city because he knew that the Islamic teachings on women were what brought all the evil on his innocent friend and ultimately made her become a homeless, a prostitute, and an addict. But he controlled his righteous anger against society when he remembered the purpose of his visit. Where now, sir, are the two ill-gotten boys who have become outcasts and in the custody of the police? They live somewhere near the prison wall. They have been kept for a long time in a small hut with an old man. No Muslim family could adopt them because Islam forbids adoption. I learned that an infidel Christian man named Gabriel Gergis wanted to adopt them, but the court refused to allow him to do so for the same religious reason. Some rumors say that your cousin Ikram was having a secret love affair with that uncircumcised Christian, cheating on her Muslim husband, and committing adultery with him. Some people believe that her first child, whom she gave birth to through adultery, was the son of that Christian infidel lover. Mr. Police Commissioner, I know every detail of Ikram's tragic life story because she told me, and I believe in her innocence from all these false accusations. The important thing now is where can I find these two innocent boys who were rejected by society? They're roaming aimlessly around the prison. I think if you went out now and looked around the wall of this prison you might see them. Or perhaps ask the guards to direct you to the hut of the old man who keeps them. Thank you very much, sir. I will certainly go and look for them at once, and if I do not find them I will ask your guards to direct me to the old man's hut where the two outcast sons live. Meanwhile, the runaway wife, who was a former Egyptian prostitute, Ikram Saleh, was standing at the window and looking at the crowds of people on the busy street below her. She smoked constantly. She drank many glasses of Abyssinian Anisha alcohol without knowing how much she drank. She was worried about the mysterious disappearance of her boyfriend, Hafez Amin. He had never left her before without telling her where he was going. Ikram looked everywhere for a note from Hafez or anything indicating where he had gone. Her vivid imagination created the terrifying possibility that when he heard the entire story of her shameful past life, he decided to leave her and run away from her forever. She believes that there is no Muslim man in all parts of the Arab world or the Islamic countries who wants to be associated forever with a Muslim wife who cheated on her husband and committed adultery with an uncircumcised Christian infidel and quack witch doctor. She gave birth to two illegitimate sons through religiously and socially forbidden sexual relations, and in the end, she escaped and became a prostitute and had sex with hundreds of men, and she is now addicted to alcohol. Ikram knows that without her faithful guardian, Hafez, she will return to the streets or practice prostitution. He was the one who pulled her out of the swamp of prostitution and put his life in danger when he smuggled her in the middle of the night from the dangerous fat Egyptian woman Sweet Coconuts who pimped with young women and from the vile murderous thugs who killed some prostitutes who tried to escape from the vortex of that life of vice. Ikram hated to even imagine the possibility of being forced to return to that hellish life again. She felt that she had received enough punishment for the sexual sins she committed against her Muslim husband and the Islamic society that has no mercy on women who escape honor slaughter. Like a long horror movie in which she is the heroine and the traitor, whose hero, her Muslim husband, chased her with a knife to slaughter her, but she managed to escape from him and went to a cliff of a high mountain, fell, and committed suicide. All of her bitter experiences suddenly began to appear on the screen of her imagination, one after another, before her eyes, like the events of a horror movie starring Dracula's vampire wife. The repentant horror heroine Ikram decided to end her life if her lover, Hafez, the brave hero of her new film, abandoned her. While she was thinking about those unpleasant suicidal thoughts and ugly memories of the painful past, her beautiful eyes suddenly narrowed as they caught a glimpse of her boyfriend's figure. Before she could see his face, he disappeared inside the hotel. The Egyptian girl Ikram decided to run and greet him with hugs in the hallway. He would have been quicker than she thought. Hafez was even faster than a series of her thinking. He pushed the door open and ran towards her and hugged her. She knew that her entire world centered on one individual. She hugged him with all her being until she felt that he melted into her body and became one of her. She released her fist, found his lips, and began to kiss him. The two lovers entered into an ecstasy of indescribable pleasure. Hafez pulled himself out of that wonderful moment and looked into the beautiful eyes of his beloved girlfriend. With indescribable joy, he shouted in her ears, "I have found your dear sons, Adele and Imad. As I brought you, my dear friend Ikram, the happiest news in the world. You have been legally declared a runaway wife not guilty by the criminal court. This means that you have been acquitted of the crimes of adultery and murder, which led you to flee your husband, your 2 children, your family, and your city. Moreover, the third astonishing news is that the hoax witch Dr. Faki Mahmoud, the Antichrist blackmailer, is not dead. He is still alive and kicking. He is now kept under lock and key in the central prison in the city, serving a long sentence for the heinous crimes he committed against you. He admitted before the criminal court that he blackmailed you, raped you, and fathered your 2 sons, Adele and Imad, without your consent." The escaped wife, Ikram Sulla, opened her eyes to their maximum capacity and stood like a statue staring at her lover. She blinked her eyes several times to confirm to herself that she was not dreaming or hallucinating the amazing information that her guardian and savior, the faithful angel Hafez Amin, had given her. Chapter 22. When Mother Ikram opened her eyes the next day, she saw her 2 sons sleeping peacefully next to her. Their innocent faces touched her heart and filled it with indescribable joy. She placed her right hand on the cheek of Imad, her youngest son, and her left hand on the forehead of Adele, her firstborn. The memory of yesterday was still fresh in her mind. She recalled her joyful experience when she rushed with Hafez to the place where her 2 abandoned sons were found. When she saw the 2 creatures that looked like her 2 children, Adele and Imad, she could not believe her eyes. She looked at her beloved Hafez to reassure herself that what she saw with her naked eyes was true. Her friend assured her that they were her flesh and blood. She knelt down and prostrated to her 2 sons as if they were idols in the Black Kaaba in Mecca City that she wanted to worship. Their pale faces and emaciated bodies looked like miserable little beggars. Their emaciated bodies revealed to her that they had eaten almost nothing since the day their biological mother had abandoned them and disappeared from their lives. The poor old man who was taking care of them looked at the beautiful Egyptian Arab girl who had fallen in front of the 2 outcast brothers who, he was told, were accused of being illegitimate children, someone killing their adulterous parents in honor killings and making them abandoned orphans. Hafez approached him and whispered in his ear, "This is the mother of these 2 sons." The disabled old man could not believe that this beautiful and noble girl was the mother of the 2 miserable sons whom he cared for as if they were 2 stray dogs abandoned by their owners and thrown into his hut, which was worse than a prison cell. He was not given any money from the police, the Grand Mosque, or any other wealthy person while he was taking care of and raising them. There is no such thing as social welfare or tax benefits for children in the Arab world or Islamic societies. If you do not work or beg, you will starve to death. Therefore, the poor, lame, and one-eyed old man had to beg people to feed the so-called 2 outcast scoundrels or sons of the forbidden sex. When they grew up a little and the 2 young children began to walk, he would take them with him and sit in front of the great mosque and beg and ask for alms from the worshippers. Sometimes, the old man and the 2 boys went without food for days and nights. At times, hunger forced the small brothers to go and search garbage containers for spoiled fruit, rotten eggs, or decomposing meat and bones to eat. As a result, The two newborn children often got food poisoning and became ill. Whenever this serious medical condition occurred to them, which almost claimed their lives, the disabled old man was forced to carry them to the government hospital and wait for long hours for a doctor or nurse to examine them. Sometimes, the hospital will give the sick child medicine or an injection. Whenever the doctor wrote a prescription to buy medicine from the pharmacy, the destitute old man tore up the paper and returned the sick child to his hut where they slept in the middle of the cave. They do not have beds, pillows, or blankets, so they freeze from the bitter cold in the winter. It was a divine miracle that these two abandoned children, who were considered illegitimate and outcast sons, lived. Islam did not allow any wealthy family to adopt them because the Quran forbade adoption. The old man kept them alive until their runaway biological mother returned and claimed them. Ikram somehow overcame her conflicting emotions with a mixture of sadness and joy. Then she stood on her trembling feet and slowly walked towards her youngest son and embraced him. Then she extended her loving hands and hugged the other brother to her breast. "I am your mother." Ikram took the sentence out of her mouth, weeping by force. The two brothers looked at the beautiful woman who embraced them without understanding what she meant when she said, "I am your mother." They do not know the meaning of the words mother and father. They do not even understand the name of their creator, God, because their caretaker did not teach them one of the 5 pillars of Islam. The old man does not know how to pronounce the Shahada or pray, fast, or perform the rituals of Hajj. Since childhood, the two brothers did not go to school, remained ignorant, and did not know how to read and write. The two poor brothers submitted their emaciated bodies to the embrace of their tender mother, which they had never experienced before from anyone. They did not even find it from the old man who kept them because he had become an outcast by his poor family, who abandoned him when he became an old disabled man and became a beggar begging for alms in the market and in front of the Grand Mosque and the alleys and roads. Despite his poverty, he is the only person who accepts the two outcast children and takes care of them until their runaway mother returns and takes them from his shack, which is better than having them homeless on the streets. Their mother, Ikram, kissed them 100 times before thanking the disabled old man and taking them from his hut. Hafez also thanked the poor old man and placed a lot of money cash in his trembling hands due to his old age. Then the happy lovers, Ikram and Hafez, went straight to the market and bought everything that little boys love to have. They bought ready-made clothes for them, as well as many kinds of gifts and toys. When they returned to the hotel, their mother washed their dirty bodies several times and changed their dirty rags into new clothes before putting them to bed. For the first time after a long time, the so-called illegitimate children of fornication wore shoes on their bare feet and slept in a bed. They slept on the ground in the old man's hut and suffered all night from mosquito bites. The memory of the beloved mother Ikram stopped and looked around in search of her beloved savior, Hafez. She discovered that her faithful guardian angel was sitting by the window and looking at her. She smiled at him but was surprised when he did not return her smile. She had to wave her hand at him to wake him from his deep trance. Hafez smiled at her and got up. Then he walked quietly and came and sat next to her. He was careful not to disturb her sleeping sons. He placed his hand on her smooth right cheek and began to feel its softness. Ikram took his other hand, placed it on her chest, and pressed it with intense love. She felt his hand reach beyond her physical body and touch her soul. Her friend Hafez put his lips to her ear and whispered softly, "Will you marry me now?" His girlfriend Ikram looked at his face for a while and said quietly, "I will not marry you. I love you so much, Hafez. I don't want you to change. Islamic marriage will change you and make you superior to me. Our beautiful friendship will turn into a relationship between the master husband and his Muslim slave wife. Let's stay lovers forever." The beloved Ikram finished her last sentence on the lips of her beloved Hafez. Their lips pressed together, their souls melting into each other and becoming one body. After that, the two lovers decided not to stay in Ikram's hometown or to return to Cairo city. Everything in these two cities reminds the runaway wife, who was a former prostitute, and the lost Egyptian girl, Ikram, of the days of suffering and wandering aimlessly, without shelter or money in the streets. Accordingly, the two lovers decided to emigrate to the West and leave the tragic memories of Ikrim's life behind them in the Islamic world, which treats women as shameful awara and lacking in religion and reason. Their decision prompted them to leave Egypt and seek asylum in Nairobi, Kenya. They subsequently applied for refugee resettlement in Australia. A year later, the intimate lovers Ikram and Hafez settled with their two sons, Adel and Imad, in Sydney City. Despite her previous decision, Ikram agreed to marry her savior and lover, Hafez. By then, she had given up alcohol and smoking. The two friends did not marry in the mosque or through a Muslim mazoon, imam, or sheikh. Rather, they had a civil marriage through a non-Muslim Australian lawyer. They left Islam and became irreligious, not following any religion in the world. A little over a year after their arrival in Australia, the Egyptian girl, Ikram, who was subjected to horrific abuse, heard about the Abused Muslim Women's Association, which was founded by the Australian wife, Irshad al-Shamari, who left Islam, converted to Christianity, and changed her name to Susan Peterson. She convinced Ikram to join that association and share her bitter experience as a severely abused Muslim ex-wife. Her Arab husband, Hafez, welcomed the idea and encouraged his Egyptian wife, Ikram, to share her bitter experience with Muslim women who were also subjected to abuse and violence by their Muslim husbands, fathers, and brothers. Once the Egyptian girl Ikram recounted her bad married life and her aimless wandering in the streets of Cairo, which ultimately led her to fall into a spiral of prostitution, alcoholism, and smoking, her story became eye-catching to everyone who heard it. The association's founder, Susan Peterson, encouraged Ikram Hafez to turn her story into a book so that many people could read it and learn about her abusive marital past. The assaulted girl, Ikram, accepted the advice of the founder and director of that association, allowed her to put her tragic experience into a true story and publish it in a book along with her story and the stories of other 5 abused Muslim wives, daughters, and sisters who were horribly assaulted and abused as a result of the misogynistic teachings of Islam that hate women and undermine their rights as human beings. About the author of this novel. Dr. A. Ahmed is a writer and scholar. He holds 5 university degrees, BA, MA, and PhD in philosophy and comparative studies of religion from India, and BA and MA degrees in religious studies and philosophy from Canada. He was born and raised a Muslim, but through his studies of philosophy and comparative studies of religion, he converted to Christianity. He has a unique writing style that can break through any religious, social, and cultural barriers and reveal the truth as it is. In addition, his books rely on eyewitness because he witnessed with his own eyes the difficult conditions that Muslim women live in. He has written 25 books, but has so far published 10. He wrote his novels in English and translated them into Arabic. All of his books revolve around women's issues in Islamic societies and terrorism in Islam. His books are available for free to listen to on his pages on the YouTube website, and he narrates them in his own voice in English and Arabic.